Hey everybody at home at Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. I hope everyone's doing well today. Today should be a fun and very interesting video, at least for me it will be. And we're going to take a look at the Douk Audio E2 headphone amp, and it's really fascinating, and it uses military spec German tubes in its output stage. Really fascinating. Anyway, sit back, relax, and we'll talk about this really neat product. So what is the Douk Audio E2? Well, it is a $220 tube-based headphone amplifier, and it's a really fascinating piece. I'll put some specs up here. It's got good frequency response, all of the right stuff. Works with headphones from 16 to 600 ohms. It is on low output. It is 550 milliwatts. On high output, it is 2,000 milliwatts, and that's on the balanced output. The RCA out is actually at 4.3 volts, and then you put it in high gain, you actually get 8.4 volts out. So it's a very, very interesting piece. Now, there is a note. It does come supplied with a 15 volt, 3 amp power supply, but don't try to use anything less than that. The factory power supply worked great. If you're gonna do a linear power supply, make sure it is 15 volts and at least 3 amps of output. It can be higher, the unit will only draw what it needs, but don't try to do some little cheap 15 volt, switching power supply or inexpensive linear power supply. Unfortunately, a good power supply for this unit is gonna wind up costing probably close to 200 bucks. So I'm not sure it's worth spending that much money. And I think I mentioned it in another part of the video. I found a bigger difference in swapping the op amp than I did swapping and using a linear power supply. So I'll leave it at that. So this is a really interesting unit. We're going to take a look at the front panel. We're going to take a look at the top panel. We're going to take a look at the back panel. We're going to go inside and I'm going to show you some really cool stuff in there. It's really interesting. Well, let's take a look at the front. I'm also going to show you the top of the unit in a separate shot, but this thing is beautiful. It's all CNC machined aluminum, beautiful wood. It's just lovely, neat knurled knob. So on the front of the unit, we've got a VU meter. Now, the VU meter only responds to volume when you turn it up. So it won't necessarily show if you're listening quietly. It's just there for fun, obviously, as a distraction. You got a 4.4 millimeter balanced input. You've got XLR balanced input, and you got 1/4 inch single-ended input. And again, this really lovely chunky knob with that beautiful Alps pot behind it. So let me reconfigure here real quick and I'll show you the top of the unit. Here we're looking at the top of the Douk E2, beautifully built. Again, beautiful woodwork, CNC machined aluminum stuff, really nice. The first control here is power. So that is power off now, power on, that's first input. So there's 2 line level inputs, and that's input 1, input 2, power off. Gain, low gain, high gain for the headphones only. Now this is the output selector. So this setting is for headphones only. This setting is for line level and headphone output. This setting is for RCA output only. Really, I think a very fascinating piece. And again, you got those beautiful Valvo tubes in it. So anyway, let's take a look at the back of the unit. Well, here we are looking at the back of the unit. You can see really good, high quality RCA connectors there. This is your output section. These are your 2 inputs, 1 and 2, left and right for RCA. This is your power in. Now, there's a 15 volt DC. I did try a 15 volt linear power supply on it. I honestly am not sure I heard as much of a difference with the linear power supply on it as I did with swapping the op amp to the TI-1656. But anyway, that is an option for you if you want to do it. And again, the casework on this thing is just absolutely beautiful, wonderfully built. Well, I got to tell you, taking this thing apart is a bit of a pain in the neck. I had to pry the little rubber feet off the bottom of the unit, and then I removed all the adhesive to get to the screws underneath. So be aware of that. Once you remove the wood plate, then you're faced with this aluminum plate, very nicely machined, but there's 2 screws here you need to remove, and then I had to use a penknife to actually get in here and pry this off. It's a very tight fit, it's very well made, and then you can get to the inside. So let's zoom in and we'll talk about what's going on inside this thing. Well, as you can see, getting into this isn't the easiest thing in the world, but I think it's well worth it because this thing's really well built. They actually use a Japanese-made Alps pot for the volume control. That's a premium product. You will see really good capacitors. That's an Elnacap, very high quality brand. These capacitors here are all Rubicon. These 2 capacitors here are Nichicon Fine Gold, and these big red ones, German-made WEMA capacitors. Really, really interesting. Now, it uses dual Texas Instruments TPA6120 headphone amp chips. This is a really top tier current feedback class A/B headphone amp chip. Delivers really good sound, very clean, very good specifications if you're into that stuff. All I know is that sounds really good. So that's a premium choice. Now there's the op amp. It comes stock with an LME 49720, but it is very close, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, so I apologize for my bad camera work here for just a second as I try to zoom in on this. The problem here is very small space. I'm going to try, I don't think I can get it in because of the capacitors being so close, a Burson op amp. A Sparkos 3602 will not fit at all. However, the TI 1656 will fit. And so that would be a good, that's a good choice anyway, because the TI 1656 is kind of the jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife of op amps. So that would be a good combination. But anything bigger than that, I don't think we're going to make it fit. And my concern with the Burson is that it sits higher than the actual case would allow when we go to close it up. That's my concern, is it's going to sit really proud of that. So anyway, we're going to mess around with it, and I'll come right back and tell you what I found out. So we're back a little bit later in the day. I was not able to get the Burson. It's just too large. It hits up against this bank of capacitors. Same thing with the Sparkos 3602. I just couldn't get it to fit. However, the TI OPA 1656 fit very well and sounded very good. Now, you also have the option of all of the other standard kind of op amps, the 2134s, the NE 5532s. You can also do the 2604 Burr Browns, JRC. You can do the 206080s. Excuse me, the 20680s. So there's a lot of different choices there. I thought that the 1656 sounded very good and the 2134 sounded very good. But overall, even out of the box stock, the standard LME 49720 sounds really good. But I think I'm going to leave that 1656 in there and play with it some more. So anyway, let me button this thing back up. Let me tell you about how I tested it, some of the music I used, and we'll get out of here. Well, as you can see from looking inside the E2, this thing's extraordinarily well constructed. I think they've underpriced it based on the build quality and the components used inside. The Texas Instruments TPA6120 headphone amp chip's a very good product. That's appeared in some other units that I've reviewed that were much more expensive. It's really nice. The fact that you can do the op amp swapping. Now, it is limited in its space, and as I mentioned, I wound up liking the the OPA 1656 best of all. But the cool thing is, in the preamp section, prior to going to the op amp, you've running it through these German Valvo ECF801 tubes. This is a very well-regarded, very rare, exceptionally high-quality tube, and it has some really unique features, and we'll talk about those in just a second. And again, the components aside, I think everything was just really well constructed, really well put together, and just a really nice unit. So let's talk about these tubes a little more. So the Valvo ECF801 is a German-made tube. It's actually made in Hamburg at Valvo's very, very highly regarded facility. It is a rare tube. It is a triode and a pentode in a single envelope. And it was introduced in probably the mid-60s, 64, something like that, primarily designed for radio frequency applications like frequency converters and television tuners. However, it had some really unique characteristics that made it very appealing to audio enthusiasts. So it is a triode pentode. You could replace it with a 6GJ7 if you wanted to. It is a standard 9-pin B9A base. The heater voltage on it is 6.3 volts at 0.41 amps, and it features a shared cathode between its triode and pentode section, which can influence, obviously, circuit design considerations. It was originally intended for RF, but it found a niche among audio enthusiasts because it has some really unique sound quality. Now, it uses what's called a shade feedback driver. So the pentode section performs well at voltages over 150 volts. This runs at about 175 volts and at currents of around 10 milliamps, which is pretty strong. And it really makes it suitable for these shade feedback driver applications, which then a little bit of feedback coming through the tube between the two sections helps eliminate noise, reduce distortion, and so forth. Now, tubes have some limitations when it comes to that kind of stuff in the first place, but it gives you a good clean sound, but still has that very nice warm tone to it. It's really fascinating, and I find it really compelling that they went to the trouble of going this far to get a really unique tube for this. Well, I used it with a bunch of different headphones. I used it with the FIO FT1s because, again, that's about a price appropriate $150 or so headphone, closed back dynamic driver. I used the Hifi Diva because that is a planar magnetic headphone that is a bit difficult to drive and not super efficient, and this did fine with that. I used the FIO FT5, which is one of my favorites back here. I used the FT7, which is their new one. That worked very well. I used the FT1 Pro, but I had really good success with this headphone, which is the Apos Audio-Technica collaboration called the ATH R70X Refine. Really good headphone review coming soon. That one was very, very interesting. So really, no matter what I plugged into this, whether it was the Sennheisers or whether it was an old pair of Sony MDR V6s that I've got, everything performs super well. I was very, very pleased with the performance. On my desktop with amps, I used the Douk A5 Pro with this. I also used the IEMA A70 monos, which I use quite a lot. I used the Schiit G-Horn, and then I used the Cambridge Audio MXW70, and that was a really good combination. So this thing has a really marvelous sound. But first, let me tell you about some of the music I used, and then I'll tell you what I thought of them. Well, for headphones and headphone gear, I always or most often use my headphone hi-fi playlist off of Tidal and Qobuz. There'll be links to both Tidal and Qobuz in the video description. And the first track I used is this track from Solar Fields called Phase 09 Sombrero. And this is a really interesting piece. This was the 9th track on Solar Fields' 2011 album, Until We Meet the Sky. And it's a beautifully melodic blend of kind of ambient and down-tempo electronica. The song spans about 5 minutes or so, sitting in a key of G minor and pacing laid back at about 90 beats per minute. It's this very kind of chill, down-tempo sort of sound. It has this really elegant progression and unfolds with kind of very lush pads and subtle polyrhythms and some really interesting layered texture. It's really kind of a dreamy, introspective journey, typical of Magnus Bergeson, he's Solar Fields' signature sound. The track has been praised, and I will give it equal praise for its rich depth and emotional arc, marked by airy effects and bounce rhythms, and its gradual blend toward this cathartic peak before tapering off. It is a really interesting piece. So in essence, the Phase 09 Sombrero stands as a captivating ambient piece that balances sonic depth with kind of rhythmic subtlety. It's a serene journey through sound, and that resonates with folks who are very into kind of contemplative electronic music. Very highly recommended. So let's talk about the next track I used. Well, the next track continues the theme I have a lot of times when I'm doing headphone reviews of using ambient electronica, because it's very relaxing, it's very comforting, but also too, the soundstage and all the imaging stuff is created in the studio, so they can make it swim around outside your head, inside your head, above your head, below your head, all over the place, and I really kind of find that fascinating. And one of the tracks that does that well is this track from William Orbit called Water from a Vine Leaf. Now, this is a track off of his original '93 album called Strange Cargo 3, and he's taken and remixed a whole bunch of these. This actually comes off the Best of Strange Cargo's album, and it, like I said, it gathers a bunch of remixes and remastered highlights of his Strange Cargo series of LPs. This one, again, features this really dreamy kind of ambient essence, but the remix gives it a really kind of refreshed sonic polish. Again, from 1993, it features early vocals from Beth Orton. This is early in her career. I've used Beth Orton she's a wonderful vocalist. I've used some of her latest stuff for reviews. You've heard me mention her before. So the track's about 7 minutes long, and it's built around William Orbit's kind of lush electronic soundscapes, swirling synth pads, gentle rhythms, poetic vocal textures. Beth Orton's voice is beautiful. On the compilation, it blends seamlessly with other standout tracks. In short, this Best of Strange Cargoes is a cool album, but this track, Water from a Vine Leaf, beautifully encapsulates kind of the ethereal and introspective qualities that made the original Strange Cargoes series a real fan favorite. It's refined, it's immersive, and it's really emblematic of William Orbit's kind of ambient electronic legacy. It's a wonderful, wonderful track to listen to. Well, the last track, continuing in the vein of kind of ambient electronic, is an artist that I just discovered recently called Jaco, well, you'll see it here, Jacoo. And off this track is called Andromeda, and it's off an album called Forgotten Songs from 2012 to 2015. Now, I never knew who the guy was, so I didn't have any of his songs to forget. But anyway, it's the opening track on that particular compilation from 2019, and it's a very meditative blend of liquid, kind of dubstep, certainly ambient electronica. It quickly became a standout in his catalog, and I think it's really lush and it's soothing, and it's really just a beautiful, relaxing kind of track to listen to. It features, gentle, melancholic piano melody layered over intricate down-tempo rhythms and anchored by kind of like a heartbeat-like pulse. It gives it both emotional depth and kind of this hypnotic flow. And it's got these kind of celestial and spacey textures, soft pads, kind of evolving atmospheres around you. Again, it kind of swims around in your head. Andromeda is very lush, it's chill, it's contemplative, cinematic, just really beautiful to sit back and listen to. And I think this is, the album itself is really good. If you're not familiar with this artist, I wasn't, and I dove in as soon as I heard this particular track. Just really fun. So Jaco, Andromeda, really interesting track. So why don't we do this? Why don't I tell you about what I thought of the sound of this particular thing, and I'll get the heck out of here. So what did I think of the Douk E2? I thought for 220 bucks, this thing is an absolute steal. And hopefully it stays that price. We're kind of in that weird limbo area right now. It is really unique. Now, I know there's going to be some limited availability on it. They were having difficulty getting the wood manufactured. Hopefully they've resolved all that, but it is beautifully built. It just feels good. Everything about it, the CNC machine case. I mean, I would expect to pay actually double the price they're asking for something like this. Sonically, it's very nice. Those German Valvo ECF802 or 801 tubes, man, they add just a smoothness and a character. I don't think you lose any detail. It is soft, it's lush, it's very holographic, but I don't feel like I'm missing any detail. It reproduced transients very well. It drove all the headphones very well, even the Hifi Mediva, which is a difficult one to drive. And I thought actually my favorites wound up being the FIO FT5 and the Apos Audio ATH R70X refined headphones, which we just got in. Really, really interesting. So, lush sound, good bass, good drive, beautiful imaging. I mean, for me, the headphone imaging is does it entertain me with swimming around in my head, outside my head, above, below, back, forth, that kind of stuff. I don't try to listen to them like I do a pair of speakers where I'm trying to focus on a particular instrument location in space, because it's all occurring in the center of your brain case housing. So it really doesn't work that way. But this was an exceptional one. And I think at its $220 asking price point, this may be one of the giant killer little products of the year. This is in the running. It's just exceptionally good. I really, really liked it. Well, hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully you'd be willing to give me a like and your subscription. That would be great. I would be grateful for that. Thank you so much to my channel members, my subscribers, and my viewers. You guys are wonderful. There will be an affiliate link to the Douk Audio unit in the pinned comment and in the video description. There will also be a channel membership link in the pinned comment and in the video description if you are so inclined. There will be a Qobuz and title link to the headphone hi-fi playlist that I use, so you can go check that stuff out. I'm not going to put individual tracks in there because you'll find them in the playlist. There are some affiliate links in the video description. You guys know the drill on that stuff. There is a link to the community post playlist. Please check it out. It is there's some great music there, and I may have found this Andromeda track off of one of those playlists. I don't remember. But anyway, comment. Let me know your thoughts. Are you looking for a headphone amp? If you're looking for something super high power to drive really, really difficult headphones, this would probably do it, but may not get super loud. But if you're looking for something that just has a beautiful, smooth, very detailed, very lush, very engaging, very listenable sound, I think this is well worth your consideration without question. So comment, let me know your thoughts. I think I've covered all the bases on the Douk E2. So please like, subscribe, comment if you want to. Follow me on Instagram. My name's Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and as I always tell you, it is now your obligation to yourself to carve out some time in your day to just sit and listen to some really beautiful music and just relax and enjoy and reflect on how wonderful life is. Anyway, you gave me a lot of time. I was selfish with it. You were generous with it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day.